Bitcoin ETF news. Bitcoin is currently roughly $1,000 short of its all-time high, and this is only a few days after the first Bitcoin Futures Exchange Traded Fund, ETF, was launched in the United States. The new Bitcoin Futures ETF from that firm saw approximately $1 billion in trading volume on its first day, making it the second most highly traded new ETF ever. So what is the current news about Bitcoin and etc.? A completely new pattern is currently playing out on the charts, as well as a brand new fractal. So make sure you watch this video all the way through so you don't miss any of the important information. So we're looking at the dollar chance on a 4-home time frame, and we can see that just a few hours ago we were extremely near to the all-time high. The all-time high for Bitcoin varies on what exchange you're looking at, but it's around $65,000 on most exchanges, and the Bitcoin price got within 500 of the all-time high less than 1% ago. So plainly, the Bitcoin price is currently trading in the center of a good range of resistance that we've been watching for a long time. Over the last few days, this has ranged from 63,000 to 65,000 USD. This same zone of resistance has been holding the Bitcoin price down, and this is the first time we've entered it. With that stated, we're potentially seeing a brand new fractal on the chart right now, and the fractal we're seeing right now is mimicking this past price action, as you've probably noticed. For example, we had an upside rise in both cases, and then we entered a little period of sideways consolidation with a small upward push. On the chart, there's a sideways consolidation with a small push to the upside, and then we came into resistance with a little bit of flat top both times, and that's roughly where we are right now. Again, we had a small pullback in the Bitcoin price before later coming back up and retesting this area of resistance, and then seeing a breakout to the upside. And you can see how similar that is by copying this previous price action just here and overlaying it over the current price without making any changes. So if things continue to play out as they did last time, we may see a modest rejection from this range of resistance. Initially, this could pull us back down to around 60,000 US dollars before we find support again, similar to how we did last time. And then we could push up back in this range of resistance where we find one last little bit of resistance and then we push above the all-time high. And by the way, the moment we break above the all-time high is the moment we see a confirmed break above 65K. That's the level to break because when that happens, it's very likely that we're going to break. So once we break above the all-time high, all chance of a short-term retreat is essentially gone. I'm not even counting on a short-term correction right now. By no means am I speculating in Bitcoin. I'm just letting you know that the current price action appears very similar to what happened the previous time we had this identical issue. And if that continues to play out, you may have one last great entry opportunity into Bitcoin, whether it's spot or long. We're still technically developing that potential bearish divergence, just looking at the RSI right now. Only if the RSI can begin to push above the line, which is currently around 70 on the 4-hour RSI, will this bearish divergence be balanced out. We've recently seen something similar. We witnessed a beautiful bearish divergence into the area of resistance, which led to the minor pullback that I just mentioned. And so not only are we seeing identical price action, but we're also seeing similar things in the RSI, which isn't even putting up the Bollinger Band signal. This is exhibiting the same thing after the first move to the upside and sideways consolidation last time, which resulted in a Bollinger Band squeeze just before the price moved. The same thing is happening right now with the Bollinger Bands, but nothing is sure in these markets. That is something that I want to emphasize. Just because we're seeing the same things right now and did before doesn't guarantee that we'll have the same outcome, which is why I mentioned earlier that I'm not betting on a move to the downside by any means. It's just that if that happens, it could be one of the last chances to invest in Bitcoin before we smash through the all-time high. As I previously stated, Bitcoin made yesterday a day for the history books because it was the day that the first ever Bitcoin was created. And that's the ProShares Bitcoin ETF, which is what we're seeing at right now on the 4-hour chart. As you can see, it's new. This is on the 1-minute time frame, so you can see a little more price action, and this Bitcoin exchange traded fund had a very successful launch. In fact, the first day of trading saw about $1 billion worth of trading volume, making it the second most highly traded new ETF in history. This is true for each and every ETF. On its first day, the Bitcoin Exchange Traded Fund, ETF, was the second most actively traded ETF ever. So this just goes to demonstrate that there is a lot of demand for Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related products, and if anything, this should encourage the SEC to consider authorizing a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is exactly what we need since it would be a true ETF, whereas this is a Bitcoin futures ETF. So the ETF is backed by futures contracts rather than actual Bitcoin, but I described everything in great detail before and will continue to do so in the future, so keep scrolling. Check out the other videos on the channel if you're a new subscriber. This Bitcoin futures ETF still provides investors with the same level of exposure to Bitcoin in terms of price movements and other factors. Given the enormous success of the Bitcoin's ETF first day of trading and the massive demand for a Bitcoin ETF, there are no more valid reasons for the SEC to prevent a Bitcoin spot ETF from being launched. On top of all of Bitcoin's recent achievements, we recently saw the highest daily candle close in the cryptocurrency's history. The previous biggest daily candle close in Bitcoin in history came around the middle of April, when it closed in at around 63.6K. So we finished the Bitcoin daily candle above $64,200 yesterday, setting in a new all-time high in terms of daily candle closes. And by the way, this is something that you don't see in a down market, so this is another indication of the direction that we're moving in this longer-term trend. Tell me what you think about all this in the comments section below. Is it wise to buy Bitcoin ETFs? This is not something that I would recommend to a retail investor. That is, in my opinion. According to Tyrone Ross, there are numerous sources to buy Bitcoin personally, including a company that provides crypto asset management technology for financial advisors, and buying a futures ETF, which the ordinary retail investor does not comprehend, is not the greatest product for retail investors. A Bitcoin's future ETF tracks contracts that speculate on the digital asset's future price rather than the cryptocurrency's current or spot price. As a result, the ETFs and Bitcoin's prices will diverge. This means that the price of an outcome's Bitcoin ETF could be higher during a bull market or lower during a bear market. Quote, you receive exposures to the future market with this form of ETF. There's a lot of nuance, Ross adds. Futures market events, such as when the management has to roll out of an expired contract and into the current contract, will have an impact on this fund's capacity to monitor Bitcoin's actual price and could raise trading costs. Others in the financial industry, as well as others in the cryptocurrency world, concur with Ross. Some claim that hedge funds and providers participating in a possible ETF investment would profit more than regular investors, particularly if the ETF trades at a premium during bull markets. A futures-based Bitcoin ETF, on the other hand, could be useful for those who are unaware of how to safely buy Bitcoin or who not want to be responsible for maintaining and protecting their Bitcoin wallet. Bitcoin's price fluctuates a lot, so an investor buying the cryptocurrency directly would have to be able to handle it. However, it is impossible to forecast future performance. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe with alerts set on in the comments section below. If you're new to the channel, please know that I appreciate all of your support. At the time, I can't thank you enough for sticking with me all the way to the end, and make sure you're tuned in and ready for the next video before you exit this one.